I'm often asked where I get my story ideas from. In the case of the Divided Decade trilogy, it began with a family vacation to Gettysburg. The fall, before the summer we were supposed to go, I started checking books out at the library, and over the next 7 months I read close to 4,000 pages, first about the war, or first about the battle, and then about the war, other battles, the leaders, the generals, Mr. Lincoln, the regions, the politics behind the war, the decades leading up to it. And I got into a lot of stories about individuals and how the war affected them. And one of the stories I found took place in Detroit, and a man by the name of Seymour Finney, he owned a hotel, and he would often house the slave catchers that would come up in the years before the war. In the meantime, he had a barn down the road where he would hide slaves. And I thought, oh, what a cool idea for a story, and I kind of took that and ran with it, and the Candlestar was born. But when I got it all done, after all that research I had done before I even started the book, and then all the research I had done for the book, I had spent so much time reading about this war, I thought this one little volume just doesn't do it justice. So I thought, why don't I expand this to a trilogy and just follow one region throughout the whole war? So I chose Michigan, because that's where the Candlestar took place, and that's also where I'm from. Book 2 takes place, it's an adventure on a farm during the war, and it goes into a lot of, it shows what life was like on those farms when the men weren't present. The women and children had to run them themselves. It shows what was expected of them, what was expected of the states to produce. It was the home front. And there's a adventure that takes place in Wayland, Michigan in 1862. And the third one is, it's set within a lumber camp in Manistee, Michigan, just after the war. The lumber camps were a place where many, many veterans went to afterwards to try and piece things back together. It was a time of rebuilding. First, for the nation, they needed the lumber to rebuild buildings that had been demolished. And the West was beginning to expand, and Chicago was built mostly on Michigan lumber. So I set another adventure within kind of a pioneer era in northern Michigan that really deals with healing and forgiveness and family. Each one of the books in the Divided Decade trilogy are standalone. They involve different characters, but they are loosely related, first by the state, second by the war, and third there is a thread that runs through all three, but they can be read alone.